Daf Pei Zayin. Tani Doch. The Gemara now presents another statement of Rabbi Yehuda. Tani Doch was taught another brisa. Rabbi Yehuda says, Sema, in regards to a blind person, he does not have, in other words, he does not receive compensation for humiliation. Rabbi Yehuda paid the mitzvahs a mudas potato. Also, Rabbi Yehuda exempted a blind person from all the mitzvahs that are stated in the Torah. My time is Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda? And it says, and this is the commandments, statutes, and laws. Whoever has mishpatim, anyone who is subject to civil laws is subject to chukim. So that's why it goes hand in hand. Famous thing. Now, he says in the beginning, if I hear one who says that the halacha is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who says that a blind person is exempt from mitzvahs, I would make a festive sage, a festive day for the chacham. My time, why? I was not commanded, and nevertheless, I am performing mitzvahs. Now that I heard the Rabbi Chanina says, we had this in Kedushin. That one who is commanded and performs a mitzvah is greater than the one who is commanded and not perform. If somebody says the halacha is not Rabbi Yehuda, I'll make a great festive meal for the chachamim. Because when you're commanded, you have more of a reward, as Taisus says in many places. Because when a person is commanded, he's consistent. Now, one day I'm going to do it, one day I'm not committed. No, the Mishnah.
You're given to the commander. Exactly. Why by a mitzvah it's bigger than
right.
I asked this question once as a shir, and I said, it's better to give your wife flowers that she just like that, or to ask her what she wants to give it. We had a big argument. If I was like, no, you have to give her from your own heart, beautiful flowers. I said, no, your wife will appreciate much more. So you say, what do you want? This is not wanting to clean up the dish. She will be much greater that gift than the book.
So the Mishnah, okay, now the Mishnah says this halacha is stringency. This halacha is a stringency with regards to a person who caused injury, compared to the halacha with regard to an ox that caused injury. First of all, a person who damages another person pays for damage, pain, medical costs, loss of livelihood, and humiliation. And if he caused a woman to miscarry, he also pays compensation for miscarried offspring. However, but in the case of an ox that caused injury, the owner pays only for compensation of damage, and he is exempt from paying compensation for miscarried offspring. Now, the Mishnah continues, one who strikes his father and his mother, but did not cause him to have a bruise, and therefore he's not chayav to receive Mises based in. We had this already. And one who injures another person in Kippur, so the chayav b'kulon is chayav to pay all 5 nizikin. He's chayav to pay nezik tzar ripei sheves ubeishis. A chayav eved ivri, person who injures a eved ivri, chayav b'kulon is chayav to pay all 5 of the nezik tzar ripei ubeishis. Chutvan Hashem is man shu shalei, except for compensation of loss of livelihood, suffered during the time the injured slave belongs to the one who injured him. Since the right of the slave's laborer belongs to his master, his inability to work is his master's loss. And one who injures a Kanani slave belonging to another, chayav mikulon is chayav to pay all 5 types of damage. This is no, Kanani slaves do not have humiliation, so the one who injured the slave pays only the other 4 parts of damage. To write a deaf mute or a sheta or a minor, an encounter with him is a disadvantage. In other words, no favorable outcome, if possible, with someone involved in an instant with one of these people. Why? Because a chayil ben, one who injures them, he's chayim. But if they were the ones who injured others, this is because they lack awareness and are not responsible for their actions. To guard a slave and a married woman, so an encounter with them is disadvantage. Why? One who injures an Eved Isha, so he's chayiv. But if they were the ones who injured others, because they do not have money to pay compensation. But they pay compensation at a later time. As if the woman becomes divorced or then there's a lien over there that they have to pay. One who strikes his father and his mother, that causes them to have a bruise. But one who injures another person on Shabbos, Pater Mepulin, is exempt from all 5 of them. Because he is judged with losing his life. The Beis Din imposes, right? So there's no additional monetary punishment. One who injures his own Evetnani, Pater Mepulin, is exempt from paying all 5 of these because Evetnani is his karka. So the Gemara discusses the case of compensation for injury. Rabbi Lazar raised the shaila before Rav. In the case of one who injures the minor daughter of others, to whom does he pay compensation for the injury? So Rabbi Lazar explains. I'm reading my time. Who we say that says the Torah granted the prophets of her youth to her father. As he receives the kedushin, compensation for injury also belongs to her father. What is the reason that he should receive it? The reason is that the one who injured her lowered her monetary value, resulting in her father receiving gifts of lesser value when she's mekudeshes. Or do I say that the Torah granted to her father the prophets because if he desires to give her in marriage to a man, if he wants to give her to a man afflicted with boils, he could. But with regards to injury, since if he desires to injure her, he may not injure her. So he may not injure any other person, as the Torah did not grant him the right to receive compensation when she's injured. So Rav says, no, Torah granted the father only the profit of her youth and nothing else. Therefore, compensation for the injury goes to her daughter. Rabbi Lazar raised an objection to Rav's statement based on the Mishnah. One who injures a Eved is chayav to pay all the 5 damages. This is exempt for compensation. This is an exempt for compensation for loss of livelihood that occurred during the time of the injured slave belonging to the one injured. This should be the halacha with regard to a Tana as well. Since the father has the right for her shvach neura, for her earnings, he should receive the compensation for the loss of her livelihood. Abaya concedes with regards to the compensation of her loss of livelihood, the Maisida Ashas Pagros, that it is paid to her father since her earning belongs to her father until the time of livelihood that it belongs to her father. And therefore, her inability to work is her father's loss. Okay, let me go a little bit. Rabbi Lazar raised the objection to Rav's statement based on the Brisa. A person who injures his adult son, he must give him compensation immediately. If one injures his minor son, he must make a safe investment for him with the compensation of the money. One who injures his mother's daughter, minor daughter, Pater is exempt. If there are others who injured her, he is chayav to give compensation to her father. So, the Gemara answers, here too, the Brisa is speaking with regards to the daughter's loss of livelihood alone, which is paid by the father. The other types of damages are paid to the daughter. Gemara questions the first one of the Brisa, and if it's the father injured his adult son, he gives them compensation immediately. I want to ask you a question. If one injures the son of daughters of others, if they are adult, he must give them their compensation immediately. But if they're minors, the Yaslam Skula, he makes a safe investment to them. The Brisa clearly says if he injures his own daughters and sons and daughters, he's Pater from everything. So it's Mamash Astira. So the Gemara says, it says not a question. Like Kasha. Kasha smuchim al shafani. Kasha ain't smuchim al shafani. Where the Brisa says the father is Pater, we're dealing in a case where the children are dependent on their father's table for support. Where the Brisa says that the father is chayiv, is dealing with a case where the children are not dependent on his table. So the Gemara challenges the resolution of the 2 Brisas. But Maya came to the Kamaisa. One manner did you interpret the first Brisa? You interpret it as dealing where the children are not dependent on the father's table. Look at the latter part of the Brisa. If one injures his minor daughter, not only that, but to others who injure is chayav to give to her father. If this is a case where the daughter is not dependent upon the father for support, then the one who injured her should give the compensation to her. Why? The should be required to give the compensation to her because she needs to provide her own sustenance. The Gemara continues this challenge. even according to the one who says that the master can say to the slave, work for me, but I will not feed you. So a master is not legally obligated to provide sustenance for the slave. This only applies by Bava Kamah. As the master can say to him, work for me the entire day, and at night go around and beg and eat food. But in regards to it says, because he fears well with you, which means with food, you have to give him food to drink. The Eved is entitled to live with his master as equal. The master may not the master may not compel the slave to serve less food. Like more so is it not the case with regards to his daughter, as she is not required to beg for her sustenance, and therefore she should receive the compensation herself. So the answer is we're talking about a case only for surplus. In other words, money that a woman earns beyond what she needs for essential sustenance. Here too, the Salafa is talking about where the case of a surplus. If the compensation for injury is more than the daughter receives for sustenance, the additional sum is paid to the father. So the Gemara challenges now, but my came to the in one manner did he interpret the latter brisa discussing one who injures the children of another. You interpret it in the dealing with the case where the son are dependent on the father's table. So the Gemara says Gedalim. So, but the brisa also says by the case of adults, you should give their compensation immediately. Tanim, in regards to minors, Yaslam Skula, should make it a safe investment for them. Amai, why make a safe investment for them? Shouldn't he be required to give the compensation to their father? So Amri, they said in response, when the father is particular about receiving the money that would go to his child, is specifically where in a manner that causes him a loss. In the case where the father himself injured his child, I would need to pay compensation. Immediately, awesome alma, but in a manner that comes from elsewhere. In the case where someone else injured his child, he is not particular about receiving the money and is paid to the child. But isn't a found item. The ma'alma asilu, a found item is a matter that comes to the children from elsewhere, and the kapit, and the father is particular about receiving it. So Amri, the answer, Rafcha the kaasi lahu ma'alma. Regards the profit that comes to the children from elsewhere, the less lutzada the gufaya begaveh kapit, and they do not suffer physical pain in obtaining it. The father is particular about receiving the money, and he does not feel the children deserve it. Or with regards to injury, the islu lutzada begufaya, where the child actually suffers pain, then and it comes from elsewhere. The father is not particular about receiving the compensation paid to his child. He says, let the child take it. The Gemara says, well, awesome, but there the first brisa, the isli tzada the gufa. It's a case where the daughter suffers physical pain, and it's a matter that comes to her from elsewhere. Diktani, and the kapit, look up, and the father is particular about receiving the money. Diktani, and it teaches, not only that, that he had, if for others who injured her, they are chayav to give compensation to their father. So Amri, they answered, Hossam, there, the bride discusses, the Gavra Kapadnahu, by same Shulchan. Talking about a case where the father is like he's a captain, and the children are not dependent on his table. I feel the alma kapit. So a man like this is particularly even by manners that come to them from elsewhere. But here in the latter brisa, the loud gavra kapit padnu, the person is not a captain, and they rely on their father to give kapit. So when he's particular about receiving the money, it's a matter that causes him a loss. And in a manner that comes to him from elsewhere, he's not particular. What does it mean in safe investment? The father should purchase a sevetera for his child. The father should purchase a date palm from which the child will consume dates. That the Teda granted the father only the profits of her youth and nothing else. The father receives even the compensation for his daughter. Does it enter your mind that the father receives compensation for his daughter's wound, which is unlike an injury, does not diminish the daughter's value? I feel that Rabbi Lezer, even Rabbi Lezer raised the child only with regards to injury. That which lowered her monetary value, diminishing the amount of money that her father would receive for kedushin. But with regards to a wound, but she did not lower her monetary value. Rabbi Lezer did not even raise the shaila. Okay, the last thing. Talking about someone who wounded her face. Where someone wounded her on her face, and thereby lowered her monetary value, as this affects the amount of money that her father will receive for Kiddushin.